Hi guys! Today we'll be recapping a story called I Don't Know the Original. I'm too busy trying to make a living. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot. Enjoy! Even though she came from a humble background, the eldest daughter, Lee Soon-jung, made it a point to attend a prestigious university in the hopes of one day becoming wealthy. After graduating, she was able to secure a job in a prominent firm, so her hard work clearly paid off. But I suppose you could say she took working hard to a whole new level. She died at 27 due to overwork. After that, she found herself in the world of the novel she used to read during her commute. But her character has no connection to the story at all, as she is just the wife of a rural baron. The novel features a female lead regressor on a quest for revenge against the emperor who hurt her. She teams up with the second male lead, and together they plot to take down the emperor. In the end, she happily crowned the third prince as the new emperor, and our girl Penelope ended up marrying a northern rural lord. Sadly, her husband was killed by a monster just a month after their wedding, and the shock brought back memories of her previous life, along with the realization that she is in a novel. You know what's worse? She remembered everything just as the novel was wrapping up, which left her with no time to plan her life. Now she has to embrace the reality of being a baroness in the northern countryside. With her husband now gone, Penelope is stepping up to take care of the people in their territory, especially with winter approaching. With her understanding of the novel, she feels sure that selling turnips and herbs will help them get through the winter. After that, she plans to adopt a descendant of her husband, Baron Halo, and pass down the estate so she can retire young and live her dream of becoming a young and wealthy retiree. Or so she thought. Have you ever wondered about what happens to the side characters after the main lead gets their revenge and happy ending? Penelope's situation is a perfect example. Their estate is currently facing financial challenges due to the situation the female lead created when she opened a bridge connecting their nation to the eastern continent and formed a trade alliance with them. Now, merchants from the east with affordable and high-quality herbs can enter their nation, leading the people of the empire to praise the female lead for making potions accessible. However, this has put small northern territories, which depended on selling herbs for their finances, on the brink of bankruptcy. Yup, these are the consequences and harsh truth of the main character's actions. Penelope is currently in a crucial meeting with her vassals, and she discovers that they only have 10 days worth of emergency rations. With winter nearing, the threat of monsters increases, so they need to consider hiring mercenaries and using magic stones, both of which are costly. On top of that, they need firewood and water to get through the winter, which is making Penelope think about whether she should just leave right now. She begins to fidget a bit, but then she comes up with a great idea, and she declares that she will head to the Imperial Bank to secure a loan. Our lovely girl with long brown hair walks into the bank with such grace. But inside, her thoughts are a whirlwind. Her inner demon urges her to run away, while her angel encourages her to stand strong for her people. Angel comes out on top as Penelope, unable to turn her back on the people, chats with the branch manager and asks for a loan. The manager understands that the Halo territory mainly relies on income from herbs and taxes collected from residents. However, given the unfortunate circumstances of this year's harvest, which has been affected by the merchants of the East, he feels pretty sure that the Baroness will struggle to repay the loan. With that in mind, he mentions that using the farmland as collateral, he can only lend her 100,000 gold, which really isn't enough to help with the Halo's territory situation. Penelope begs him to reconsider and be a bit more accommodating, but this only makes the branch manager irritated, reminding her that the bank provides loans based on profitability. He gives her a playful smirk, mocking her that being a noble doesn't mean he has to bow to her. This almost prompts her knight Cain to draw his sword, but Penelope quickly stops him, declaring that she'll put their castle up as collateral instead. Sir Cain is on the verge of stopping her, but he chooses to remain silent when he notices the urgency and fear in his lady's eyes. This realization hits him hard. Not taking action now could mean the end for their people. The branch manager becomes interested and inquires about the amount of money she needs, prompting our girl to confidently request 1 million gold with a repayment period of 1 year. This immediately makes the branch manager all smiley again as he writes the contract with a monthly interest rate of 10%, which Penelope accepts as long as he pays in imperial gold coins, prompting the guy to freeze in shock. Following the emperor's death, issues like rising prices emerged, leading to a drop in currency value. As a result, gold coins, known for their stability, are now highly sought after. The manager explains that he can't provide her with gold coins because there isn't enough gold in the vault. so he can only issue her a check instead. If that's what he says, then Penelope can't do much about it. However, she does mention that she'll just head over to the demo bank instead, which happens to be their rival bank. The man quickly takes back his word, and before Penelope has a chance to change her mind, he asks her to write their contract right away. Penelope finally has money to save them, so her next challenge is figuring out how to pay it back in a year. Her next move for now is to head to the stock exchange, and she happily mentions that there's a stock that could suddenly rise. It's time to reap the benefits of knowing the novel. Penelope is now standing in front of the Renberg Trading Company, taking in the atmosphere of this medieval stock exchange, and then goes to quickly search for the catalog. Once she obtains it, she goes through each company looking for stocks. Penelope's eyes widen as she notices the Zurich Railroad Company, which appears familiar to her, and a smile runs across her face as she recalls that this is the railroad company where the female lead had made a secret investment. She then notices that the share price is still relatively low due to its recent establishment, and she calculates that one share costs 50 gold. Therefore, for 1,000 gold, she may obtain 2,000 shares. Confident in her plan, she approaches the counter and expresses her desire to purchase 2,000 shares of the Zurich Railroad Company, which surprises the person in charge, who then advises her not to invest in that company and suggests it would be better for her to purchase only 100 shares. However, Penelope is adamant about investing 100,000 Imperial Bank gold coins, which catches the attention of the person in charge, who promptly provides her stock certificates. After that, Penelope walks out of the building, where her knight suggests they head to the inn, which she readily agrees to. But someone calls her attention, informing her that they are now dealing with a major problem, because herb prices have dropped to half their value again, implying that their entire cart full of herbs is now worth less than 10,000 gold. This causes Penelope to pause for an instant, before calmly ordering Cain to follow her with the herb cart, claiming that she needs to go someplace. This confuses Cain, who tells her that they will not earn much more than 5,000 gold selling the herbs anywhere. She then turns around and announces that they are not going to the market, because she is going to the Magic Tower branch nearby, which surprises the two guys with her. She then gives them an assuring grin, affirming that they're really going there. When she arrives at the Magic Tower, the entrance is blocked by a pile of books. As if our girl didn't have enough to deal with today, they have to spend at least 30 minutes moving the books to get inside. In the middle is an old man named Lecter, who appears to be so busy that he has no time to look at Penelope and simply assumes she's there to buy something. So he begins reciting the various rates of storage and purification stones, as well as selling a magical tool that tracks cheating husbands. This is Penelope's first encounter with a magician, and from what she recalls, the Tower Master is at the highest level of his skill, able to crush mountains and cause rivers to flow backwards at his command. She approaches the old man with a smile and lets him know that she is here to sell herbs at the tower, which earns her a glare from him since everyone is aware of how herbs have lost their value now. When Penelope shows Lecter the green herb with its stem, leaves, and flower bud, he is taken aback and quickly stands up to express his gratitude, knowing it will help lighten his workload. Usually, people only use the green herb leaves for potions, but the truth is that the herb can be used in various ways, involving its stem and flower buds. The Tower Master stumbled upon the usefulness of the other parts of the herb, but unfortunately, it's too late. The northern farms have already plowed their herbs due to their trade partnership with the eastern continent. So for short, Halo territory is the only place with herbs that still have stems and flower buds. Penelope tells Lecter that she has a cart full of herbs, all in great condition, which makes him really happy, and he says he'll buy them all for 100,000 gold. Our negotiation expert here says she'll sell it for 500,000 gold, which makes the old man start to argue. However, he falls silent when Penelope knows that her herbs with stems and flower buds are quite rare to find at the moment. In the end, they agree on 300,000 gold, but Penelope expresses her wish to have it converted into magic stones. These stones are essential for creating a barrier to protect their territory from monsters, especially during the winter season. Next, she needs a mage to install the magic stone barrier, so when the old man mentions that it'll cost an additional 100,000 gold, she decides to purchase only 200,000 worth of magic stones so she can afford to hire the mage. She gets a thumbs up from Lecter, and he wakes up the man who's buried under the stack of books. I'm not sure if he's in his emo phase, but this man has messy golden hair that covers over half his face and immediately tells Penelope to go, making her blood boil. I guess we call that hate at first sight? Lecter quickly hits the mage on the head before making his way over to Penelope. He reassures her that the young mage's skill are quite good and promises to take full responsibility if any issues arise with the barrier. Penelope inquires with Lecter about the availability of any other mages, as she feels the young man might have a lazy attitude that could affect his work. However, upon learning that there are no other mages in the tower, she realizes she has no option but to go ahead and hire him. After that, she asks Lecter if he knows any alchemists because she needs one to work on her territory too. It turns out that this emo mage knows alchemy as well, so she just needs to add 50,000 gold to his pay. Lecter then glares at the mage, telling him to stop drinking and get to work before heading off to check the herbs. After loading the empty wagon with supplies and food, Penelope's day has finally come to an end, and they are now on their way back to Halo with the mage. This novel is set in a fantasy world filled with monsters, and she believes that having one mage is a better choice than hiring a group of mercenaries who could have questionable backgrounds. The mage only needs to set up the barrier that would protect them from mid-tier monsters, and all she can hope for is that no high-tier monsters will attack. But seeing the mage drooling in front of her makes her trust him less. She decides to keep the assurance that Lecter gave her, which states that if the mage neglects his duty, he will send a replacement. Anyway, can we just give a round of applause for how wonderful our sweet girl is? In just a day, she managed to hire a mage, purchase emergency rations, and gather enough gold coins to last until next year. Penelope believes that the Dirk Railroad stocks will rise by next autumn, since the leads will have their happy ending, meaning that all of the female leads' hard work will be rewarded, one of which is the success of her railroad business. She falls asleep wondering about what she would do when she becomes wealthy, but she awakens when she hears the mage, so she glances and sees that he is speaking to someone via a communication orb or something. Penelope hears him ask sweetly, "Are you awake?" and feels a bit confused, wondering if he's talking to her. She then realizes that this person is just like that boyfriend who can't seem to move on from his ex. She just listens to him mumbling about how he can't sleep and how he regrets that he only now realizes how precious their time together was. He then asks if she's happy now, while our girl is doing her best to keep her eyes closed and just pretend she didn't see or hear anything. A male lead who's heartbroken, huh? Interesting. When she returns home and tells everyone the good news about how she was able to take out a loan, everyone is overjoyed. But when they ask how they would repay it or what collateral she offered, our poor girl gets the chills. Still, it's now or never, so she confidently reveals that she used the castle as collateral, that they must repay the loan in a year, and that the interest rate is 10%, prompting all of the vassals to gasp before yelling at how foolish her plan was. Fortunately, the Halo treasurer is there to calm everyone down by informing them that no bank would ever lend an estate near bankruptcy for free. Thus, they should have predicted such a crisis, which the chief administrator agrees with, prompting everyone to pause and consider. The treasurer walks up to Penelope and promises to do his best to help her repay their debt. So when she mentions that they need merchants, he agrees to bring her the merchant guild leader. Following that, she allocates 100,000 gold to the treasurer to purchase food for the estate's residents, as well as 200,000 gold to pay their guards and staff. So their only problem for now is to purchase firewood for the castle. The stone-walled castle and the estate's residents' homes have features that enable cold wind to pass in, making it so cold that they can't even remove their shoes indoors. However, as a modern-day girly, she knows that the installation of an underfloor heating system will solve this issue. She wishes to discuss this with the mage, who is currently sleeping, so she gives an order to ensure he is fed well and summoned to her office right away. However, this heartbroken emo mage is a bit more challenging than she thought, as he has such specific food preferences that it gives Penelope a headache. So she decides to just have them call the mage to her office. When he arrives, he instantly mocks how poor the territory is, but he becomes curious when he notices her drinking something, and is surprised when she explains that it is brewed tea made from green herbs. Red herbs are used to create antidotes, blue herbs to boost power, and green herbs to aid in health recovery. Since the cost for green herbs have dropped, Penelope has done experiments, one of which is roasting the herbs' leaves, and she discovered that they can be converted into tea with benefits such as relieving fatigue. The mage thinks it's intriguing, so he decides to give it a go and is surprised by how good it is. Penelope then offers him some scones she made from corn, which at first seems a bit unusual to him. However, once he gives it a try, he's pleasantly surprised by how delicious they are. He looks kinda cute with his beauty mark. After they've established a rapport, she hands him a sheet of paper with the design she made for the heating system, leaving him confused. She says that regular people survive the cold by burning firewood or layering clothes, while nobles use large magic stones to heat their mansions. But these methods are too costly, so this is where her heating system comes into play. She then explains her drawing, stating that they must connect pipes to the well, construct plumbing within the house, and heat the water to circulate it, which would raise the temperature. The mage looks at the paper intently and wonders if Penelope is a genius who should be taken to the mage tower. Modern-day characters are indeed the mage's greatest rivals. She then suggests that they add hot running water in the bathroom, which sounds great, but the mage gets frustrated when she reveals that she can only recruit 2 dwarfs for this job. He believes they should get at least 10, but what can they do when they're nearly bankrupt and her budget is only 100,000 gold? He then stands up and claims that a manual operation of her heating system can be completed faster. After that, he leaves her office without saying anything, raising our girl's blood pressure. The next day, the mage barges in, saying that he has completed the blueprint, but they must first apply for a patent before proceeding with the project. He then claims that he will take 70%, but Penelope says he can only take 30% and she will get the other 70%. He argues that he did all the mechanical engineering in the blueprint, but it is what it is. So as her business partner, he eventually gives his name, Awin, while Penelope instructs him to call her Baroness Halo. Speaking of her title, Awin wonders where the Baron is while his wife is working hard for the estate, and he assumes that the Baron is having fun somewhere. However, when he discovers that the Baron died 2 months ago, he instantly shuts his mouth and awkwardly says that he will go explore the castle by jumping out her window. Penelope gets terrified, yet she is surprised to see him levitate without casting a spell, which most mages are unable to pull off. He is obviously the Tower Mage Master. Awin then effortlessly creates a barrier around the entire Halo domain, but he can't stop thinking about how Penelope came up with ideas like drinking green herb tea. He massages his head and thinks our girl is weird, while I, sir, find you really charming. Those eyes and lashes are beautiful. Anyway, he decides to stay and continue observing Penelope. Today, Penelope finally meets with the 2 hired dwarves, who are now fascinated by the blueprint. They believe that cheaper materials than copper may be used to create the pipes, but they must first undertake trials with various materials. After their meeting, our girl feels a bit annoyed when Awin keeps following her, so she asks what he is up to, which leads him to say that he is just seeing her off. Penelope turns away and asks him to stop, but this guy just won't give up, which is really frustrating her because she needs to use the bathroom. The truth is, Awin wants to say sorry for being a bit insensitive earlier when he asked about her husband. He explains that he really didn't know, and Penelope is surprised by his suddenly shy behavior. Still, she turns around and coldly tells him not to worry since she's all right before walking away, leaving him speechless. At last, the day comes to a close and Penelope settles down on her bed, but her mind keeps wandering back to what Awin mentioned earlier. She was being honest when she said she was fine because after her husband passed away, what really concerned her was not his death but her future, the future of Halo. To be fair, it was a political marriage, and she never really had feelings for the Baron since the only time she saw him was on their wedding night, and that was it. Another day is another exhausting day for our poor girl, who is almost ready to give up on organizing so many documents. She is actually looking for ideas to help her with a business strategy, but she fails to find any, so she considers modern business techniques. Maybe a cafe or a clothing store, but she dismisses both because they require a large amount of capital. Instead, she begins to think about some smaller business ideas. Her mind is so preoccupied that she accidentally touches her dessert with her bare hand, so she instantly asks her maid, Giselle, to bring her water. However, her patience is wearing thin because the soap she is using is so difficult to foam. In this world, soap lacks fragrance and is of poor quality, so nobles use scented oils to care for their skin. However, because these oils are pricey, most people cannot afford them, which is why they have rough skin. Penelope beams with excitement as she finally figures out what business she wants to pursue. She heads over to Awin's room, knowing he's great with alchemy, and asks him to teach her how to make soap. Awin is a genius who entered the magic tower at the age of 3, so he isn't one to teach or give insights to anyone, but he is becoming drawn in when Penelope mentions making soap with green herbs. He wonders what's so wonderful about making soap with green herbs, which prompts her to cheerfully explain that it will smell fresh, help clear and moisturize the skin, and best of all, it will be affordable for everyone. The benefits are still a theory for now, but since green herbs are used in recovery potions, it's likely that green herb soap will have some skin regeneration properties. Awin finds her way of thinking absurd, but then he takes a moment to consider and realizes it might actually be possible. After a minute of thought, he tells her that the patent for this one should be about a 50-50 split. Since adding green herbs to the soap requires magic, Penelope happily agrees to his terms. Mr. Genius is now busy studying herbs and potions, but he's still impressed by Penelope's intelligence and weirdness. What captivates him even more is her ability to make eye contact with him when other people cannot. Maybe it's because no one can see your eyes, sir? Awin may appear lazy right now, but he feels proud to say that there was a moment in his life when the Emperor could not treat him rashly because he was the Grand Magician. Meanwhile, Penelope stops by their warehouse to speak with Halo's chief administrator and see if everything is going well. She also kindly reminds him to ensure that all of their staff receive the winter fabric. After that, she asks about the merchant guild leader, and the administrator quickly introduces her to Pablo, a man with long gray hair. From what she remembers, this shy-looking guy is a merchant who supports the female lead, so she's a bit puzzled about why someone like him would be wandering around in such a remote place like Halo. She is curious whether his business is collapsing or not, but she asks him to get her the supplies she needs to produce soap, such as caustic soda and fruit oil. Getting another worker makes this cutie pie very happy, and he promises to bring everything to her tomorrow, proving to Penelope that his business may be failing. The female lead sounds sus. Did she just ditch this guy after becoming successful? The next day, after she receives the ingredients, Penelope gets ready to make soap, and she's surprised when her two maids arrive to lend a hand. Penelope doesn't want to disturb them since they are already managing a workload meant for 5 people. But it seems they really adore their Baroness and are now eager to help. Just as they are getting ready, Awin shows up and asks the 3 ladies to join him in a grand, vintage-looking room featuring a huge clock in the center. Penelope can't believe her eyes and is shockingly curious about why those things are in the Halo Castle, which prompts Awin to casually inform her that it's his workshop and that he opened a portal linking it to the Halo Castle. She trembles as she takes a step forward into the room, wondering if it is safe for her to continue, prompting him to suggest that she touch anything to see what happens. His reply just makes her more anxious, causing her to freak out, thinking there's an issue like maybe she'll be trapped and won't be able to get out. Seeing how she's reacting, Awin chuckles and reassures her that it's not going to happen. Once the ingredients are arranged, everyone gears up to start working, and the process is simple. After combining equal parts water and caustic soda, transfer it to a wooden mold and mix in the fruit pulp and oil. The next step is to add drops of the herb essential oil Awin extracted himself, and then they simply wait for it to harden. Penelope acknowledges Awin's hard work and the maids' efforts, instructing them to leave now that they have finished. Awin then casually mentions that she can also leave, which makes her realize that he continues to speak to her in an informal manner. She then brings up that she'd like the soap they're making to have a bit more fragrance, which leads Awin to explain that it's entirely possible by just adding different scented oils, but he thinks it would be a good idea to check if the green herbs in the soap really have any benefits. Penelope agrees with him and instructs him to do it, prompting him to halt for a moment, feeling that a mere Baroness doesn't respect him, the Tower Mage Master. Yup. Disrespect deserves disrespect. He bluntly tells her that if she wants respect from him, she might as well forget it, since he is not the kind of person she should be chatting with casually. However, she cuts him off, asking for his name again, and he answers without a fuss. She then explicitly tells him that he can call her Baroness Halo, but to her surprise, he protests that her title is too long and asks for her real name. She then tells him that he can call her Penelope, which he quickly accepts. Personally, I like this. I like how they didn't fall in love, blah blah, so quickly. A day later, the soap is ready for them to try. The maid starts by washing their faces with it, and everyone is satisfied. They then all smell the soap, and their opinions differ. Someone believes it's not awful, someone likes the green herb scent, and another dislikes the herbal smell, prompting Penelope to conclude that the aroma must be improved, but seeing Awin sleeping in one corner irritates her. She can't help but wonder who could have dumped him so badly or if his heartache has anything to do with the Tower Master, which prompts her to suspect Awin as the Tower Master. After looking at Awin, Penelope believes that he does not resemble the Tower Master, so she dismisses the possibility that he is the Tower Master. She then requests that the maids use the green herb soap for a week to see the results, which they all readily accept. Following that, she expresses her goal to include orange and rose smells into the soap, resulting in 2 separate variants. This causes Awin to react, as they must first test the efficacy of the green herb soap, but Penelope is confident that the soap is beneficial, as shown by the maid's clear complexion. To make orange soap, they need to make essential oil by melting orange peels from scratch, which is inefficient if they're manufacturing it in volume. So he proposes they buy a sample of the essential oil instead. Penelope likes his plan, so she decides to meet the merchant again, and she swiftly turns around to check it out, while Alwyn just takes a mental note how workaholic she is. Soon after, Penelope informs the merchant that they need orange and rose essential oils, with intentions to progressively place orders for jasmine and lavender as well. Her plan to produce soap using essential oils surprised the merchant, who is aware that nobility appreciates perfumes and that soap is pricey for commoners. So he wonders how Penelope came up with the idea, and swiftly inquires about the effects of the soap she will be producing. She claims that the soap will smell nice, but they still need to evaluate its effectiveness. Despite knowing that orange peel is helpful for pigmentation and anti-aging, the rose oil is beneficial for relaxation. She decides not to mention these benefits and instead asks when her orders will be ready. After learning that her orders would take 4 days, she lets the manager handle the payments, which surprised the merchant, who believed that the Halo estate was in poor condition, but now it seems like it's suddenly worth a fortune. 2 weeks later, Penelope's maid knocks on her door to inform her that they want more herbal soap, which makes her delighted. However, she informs them that they would have to wait a little longer because they will soon be producing the soap in bulk at the estate, which pleases everyone. Suddenly, Alwyn abruptly walks into her office, informing her that the dwarves are starting to do things right, meaning that they were able to build the boiler and hot water pipes. Penelope can't help but compare him to a happy puppy, while he goes on to tell her that the dwarves discovered materials for the pipes, and that if the heating system is built according to the design, the temperature inside will rise to 60 degrees, making it possible to build a greenhouse. She smiles and expresses her gratitude after learning that they may test the heating system before the first snowfall. The butler then announces the arrival of the merchant leader, and when Alwyn recognizes Pablo's voice greeting Penelope, he quickly checks the person and is surprised to see him there. Pablo sees Alwyn looking at him, so he asks if they know each other, but Alwyn just takes his tea, wondering why someone who follows Betty like a puppy is here. Because he isn't talking, Penelope introduces Alwyn as her mage business partner, and despite his long hair hiding his face, they can all see that Alwyn is annoyed with Pablo. She then shows Pablo the soap they made, and he is astounded by its orange aroma. But he frankly informs her that they may not be able to sell it. Penelope expected his reaction because simply adding scent to the soap raises its price, thus, it may not appeal to commoners, while nobility might not need it because they use perfume oils after bathing. This is Giselle's cue to get a basin of water, put Pablo in a lovely pink headband, and with just one wash, his face instantly sparkles. Penelope smiles as she explains to him that this soap is called green herb soap, and that they have already tested it on 23 individuals over the course of 2 weeks, with all the findings showing that their skin has become brighter, with fewer blemishes and acne scars. I really want one of these soaps for myself. They quickly wrapped up the contract, and Penelope provided a sales strategy. She intends to create orange and rose soap as luxurious products for high-ranking nobles, while keeping the regular green herb soap more budget-friendly. Once Pablo left, Penelope turned to Alwyn and asked if he knew Pablo. Alwyn explained that Pablo is just an acquaintance of an acquaintance, which our girl does not believe, but she does not want to pry as long as Alwyn does not raise any trouble, that is. Penelope granted the butler complete responsibility over their soap manufacturing, and they set up the soap workshop in the village hall, employing villagers as laborers. Aside from her and Alwyn, only the butler knows how the soap is produced, so he must ensure that it remains confidential. Soon after, high-quality soaps were manufactured and distributed in the marketplace, and as expected, people loved them. During the house meeting, they only have positive news to tell, such as how their soap business is growing steadily and workers are getting jobs thanks to the soap workshop, which is all due to their Baroness's hard work. Because she owns the soap patent, it can only be marketed in their area, potentially making Halo a tourist destination, and our girl couldn't wait to see how much money comes in. Since their business is now soap, she wants everyone to educate others to wash their hands with soap regularly, which confuses them all. People only use soap to wash their faces and bathe every few days because soap is considered a luxury item. So she informs them that merely washing hands before eating or going home will prevent diseases, which astounds everyone and promises to spread the word. Sir Kane then reports that they have no problems protecting outside their domain now that Alwyn has finished the magic stone barrier, which shocked Penelope at how quickly the mage set it up, given how much mana it requires. In this novel world, those with immense power are feared, and that's exactly what's happening right now as her vassals question how she hired Alwyn. They recommend hiring another mage, and Penelope knows why, as powerful mages are known to enslave and torment people. However, she says that Awin will have to stay since they have a contract to complete, and they also need his skills if they want their business to prosper, which leaves everyone silent. The winter weather arrives earlier than expected, and Our Lady is already extremely cold, so she stays closer to the fireplace. But she is confused as to why Awin is also here when he could simply open his portal thingy again, but the magic tower appears to be even colder. Now that she has a better look at him, she wonders if he's eating properly because he appears thinner than when he first arrived. So she asks him to eat so she won't nag him anymore, which he unwillingly accepts. The chief administrator then enters with positive news. The dwarfs have finished the underfloor heating system at the unused gardener's house. They rush to the house where the dwarfs greet them by asking them to take off their shoes. As soon as they enter inside, they are shocked at how warm the area is. The dwarfs explain how they install the pipes before laying the efficient heat conduction tiles, which makes Penelope pleased. The next day, formal contracts with the dwarves are signed, and they start working on Halo Castle's heating system, while the gardener's residence becomes accessible to anyone who wishes to stay warm. The men use the living room, while the ladies use the bedroom, making the whole place a common lounge. That evening, as Penelope wrapped up her work, she took a moment to check on everyone. When she glanced over at the men's quarter, she noticed Awin crying in his sleep. That heartbreak really hit him hard, huh? The bedrooms in the gardener house cannot accommodate all of the maids, so some of them are staying with Penelope in her office, which already has a heating system. But she assures them that once the dwarves finish installing the heating in her room, she will have the retainer's room and servants' quarters heated as well, making them all very happy. One maid brought Penelope milk and sweet potatoes, but when she discovers that Awin refuses to eat, she believes that the heartbreak is really weighing on him, so she goes to check on him herself. When she arrives at the men's quarter, she tells him to get up and eat, but he is really grumpy, so she has no choice but to shove the sweet potato into his mouth. She looks so innocent and sweet when she says it melts in your mouth, so Awin chooses to eat, eventually finishing the entire bucket of sweet potatoes and craving more. The two of them head outside to roast more sweet potatoes, and she asks him with a smile if he feels better now, which leaves him a bit confused. She then mentions that to forget someone, it's important to keep moving, just like what they're doing now, enjoying the snow and roasting sweet potatoes by the fire. This makes Awin step away, surprised that she knows what he's going through. Penelope claims he makes it so obvious that everyone in the estate knows he's heartbroken. The truth is that Awin was so in love with the female lead, Betty, that he would do everything to see her smile, even if it meant giving up his life. But she didn't choose him, leaving him feeling betrayed. He finally decides to share his feelings with Penelope, voicing how he was ready to give everything for this woman. But he is stunned when, instead of calming words, she just responds that some things in life leave lasting effects. She then encourages him to let go of the past if he's not planning to change it. Instead, he should focus on living his life now, which really hits Awin. The next day, he joins her for breakfast, and it appears that her advice was effective, as he is now eating like there's no tomorrow. He then notices her eating so cutely with crumbs all over her face, and he automatically reaches out his hand, but quickly stops and simply advises her to clean her mouth. A recent widow and a newly heartbroken guy seem like an intriguing combination to me. After that, they have tea, and our girl enjoys doing so while watching the Knights train outside, while Awin finds himself wondering why he, someone who usually prefers to keep his distance from others, except to Betty, doesn't mind when Penelope approaches him. He looks at her, but whoops, nothing romantic will happen right now since Giselle appears out of nowhere to open the window. It's time for Giselle to clean, and Penelope offers to help, but is swiftly reminded that she should rest. Suddenly, a wooden sword from outside nearly strikes Penelope, but Awin grabs it and smiles at her for saving her. "Sir, how much must I pay to see more of those gleaming eyes and smile?" Awin then gets serious as he warns the knights that sparring practice in the yard is no longer permitted, prompting them to bow as they express their apologies. Seeing him smile earlier makes Penelope blush as her heart races, quietly telling herself to calm down. She then asks if he has swordsmanship abilities, which he instantly denies, claiming that what happens is only pure reflexes. At that moment, she thinks he's a genius, which makes her recall that in the novel, Tower Master Arwen is also a genius who could have been a famous swordsman if he had picked up a blade when he was younger, but he shunned swordsmanship because he hated seeing blood. She then realizes that Arwen and Awin sound similar, which shocks her. So she takes a closer look at him and discovers that while Awin's appearance is untidy, his skin is fair, his shoulders are broad, and he is tall with a slim but toned physique. There's a big chance that Awin is the Tower Master. Well, Arwen in the novel is like a happy puppy, so I understand why it's taking her forever to pick up his true identity. That day, Merchant Pablo is about to enter the Halo premises with the butler. But the butler's request that he take off his shoes makes him pause, wondering if he really has to do it. However, when his foot touches the floor, he's totally surprised and starts to wonder what kind of magic made that happen, since it's his first time feeling a hot water pipe. Pablo's eyes widen as the heating system feels like magic to him, prompting Penelope to reveal that the patent for the hot water pipes belongs to her and the mage Awen, while the dwarves manage the production and installation. She continues to inform him that their business will soon grow and recommends that he have a proper conversation with the dwarves if he desires a share of it. Since they're talking business, this really excites Pablo, and before he leaves, he gives her a gift, hoping she will enjoy it. The sight of the coffee beans astounds Penelope, so he quickly assures her that he has also included instructions on how to brew them, but she quickly states that she already knows how and thanks him. This leads Pablo to look at her, aware that in the north, only the wealthy can indulge in coffee, and he discovers Penelope to be unexpectedly intriguing, but Awen swiftly steps in to shoo him away. Once they are alone, Awen notices Penelope's exhausted expression, so he says he'll stop being rude to Pablo from now on if it bothers her, which sounds weird to her. She quickly mentions that it doesn't bother her too much, and he nods in agreement since there's really no reason for her to care about the merchant. This makes her pause, and she starts to realize that Awen might be feeling a bit jealous. His rudeness begins flashing in her mind, so she immediately brushes the thought and is sure that this guy is simply being petty, plus imagining being lovey-dovey with Awen makes her queasy. After a few days, the construction of the heating system for her room and Awen's is finally complete, so Penelope is now enjoying her tea in peace. Recently, her office was bustling with people seeking warmth, and going to the restroom was quite a challenge, but now she finally has her own cozy space. This is what I appreciate about her. She is truly thoughtful and kind, especially since she could have kept the workroom all to herself. Not long ago, she was feeling anxious about how to repay the 1 million loan, but now she acknowledges that with Awen's help, her ideas, from the heating system to the soap business, are coming to life. The mage walks into her room slightly grumpy as he mentions that he browsed through the library but found not much to read since he's already gone through most of the books. Suddenly, Penelope asks how old he is, and when he replies that he's 23, she looks so surprised. She can hardly believe that this childish guy is actually 2 years older than her. Awen feels curious about her age too, but our girl chooses not to share it and simply mentions that they are around the same age. Oh, so she can still boss him around. Cheeky girl. He then approaches her desk and notices that she is still working on the same documents she was working on this morning, prompting her to explain that she must revise them all. He smoothly uses his magic, and in seconds, all documents are completed. So he leans closer to her and tells her to join him at the top of the estate. Penelope is confused, but she eventually lets him drag her. But she appears to be regretting her decision now, as Awen instructs her to jump out of the window with him in this really cold weather. He takes her hand and uses his power to warm her up before levitating, and asks her to take his hand and just trust him, which she does. And when she opens her eyes, she's astounded to view the city from above. No magic carpet, just pure magic. However, seeing that there is nothing under her feet causes her to get frantic, and she quickly clings to Awen to the point where he can't breathe. And yep, this isn't a whole new world, shining, shimmering kind of night, as these two begin squabbling in midair. Awen decided to land on a roof, and when Penelope sensed that it was safe, she looked around and fell in love with how the night sky complemented the warm light of the city. Seeing her so happy right now brings a smile to his face, and he hopes this will compensate for the advice she gave him. Looking at the mountains, Penelope remarks that there must be many monsters living there, so Awen asks if she wants to see one, but she quickly declines. Suddenly, he stands up and shifts to a serious tone, asking her to get her soldiers ready since someone has just crossed the barrier he set up. Penelope and Awen, together with Sir Kane and some of their soldiers, head to the snowy mountain and meet 3 men, who explain that they were hunting and were lost. Our girl thinks this is strange because there's nothing in the forest but monsters during the winter. When Awen assures her that the man in the cloak isn't dangerous and recommends they have him in for a meal before sending him out, she realizes that they must know each other. She agrees to this, prompting the man to thank her, but it appears that he recognizes Awen and is now interested as to why the Tower Master is here. The next day, one of the maids, Laura, the detective, advises Penelope that one of their guests must be a noble based on his clothes and manners, whereas Giselle suggests that they prepare dinner and welcome the guests so Penelope can introduce herself. Our girl decides to discuss the situation with her vassals when Alwyn arrives. Upon hearing that Penelope plans to invite the guest for dinner, he becomes grumpy and, with his arms crossed, says that she doesn't need to be polite and should just serve them a meal and send them on their way. She can't believe how cold-hearted this mage is. Who would travel in this knee-deep snow? The guest actually heard her and thanks Penelope for that. Oh my, the guest is actually a cutie pie, and he smilingly greets Alwyn, but Alwyn, being Alwyn, didn't greet him back as he mentions that they're not on friendly terms. Before anything happens between the two, Penelope introduces herself as the estate's acting lord, prompting the guest to do the same and introduce himself as Rionel Leovent. This surprises her because House Leovent is a prominent family, and she is now convinced that the man in front of her is the Grand Duke. However, the name Rionel also sounds familiar to her because it belongs to one of the male leads in the novel. He is described as a handsome man with black hair, known for being merciless, hailing from the north and carrying a magic rifle. This is making her sweat now, and she chooses to believe that these are just coincidences. Yeah, like, why are the lads tied to the female lead here? The three of them end up having supper together, and Rionel shares that he had been wandering for 3 days and was lucky to find their castle. He admits that he just wanted to ride his horse out in the open, but now knows how careless he was in doing so. He becomes curious about how Penelope met the mage, so she honestly explains that she signed a contract with him, which only deepens his curiosity about the whole story. This is making her nervous now, because if she puts together the puzzle pieces of how a noble cares about an ordinary mage, there seems to be only one answer. Alwyn must be the Tower Master. She calms herself down and smiles, explaining that she met the mage by chance, so she returns the question to him, asking what the Duke's relationship is with the mage. No one dares to respond until Rian starts laughing and adds that he was only interested because he had never seen a mage be so nice to others. After that, he mentions that he and his knights are healing from the injuries they sustained from forest monsters. He kindly asks if they could stay in her castle until they regain their strength, and he assures her that he'll repay her properly. Penelope happily agrees since the snowstorm isn't stopping anytime soon. And just like that, the two boys start exchanging death glares again, making her so exhausted. The next day, Alwyn complains that he doesn't want Rion here and advises Penelope not to trust the man. Penelope lets out a sigh and reassures him that the Duke will likely leave on his own once the snow stops, as who would want to stay in their castle anyway? She's really the only one who can handle this grumpy guy. The chief administrator then enters her room to share the news that Duke Rionel has a fever, which makes Alwyn laugh heartily. However, when Penelope suggests bringing Rionel to her room since it has a heating system, Alwyn quickly falls silent and starts pouting like a little child. Honestly, he is really cute. Rion is experiencing a dream about Betty, and this is the exact scene in which she turned her back on him and abandoned him. This is also the point at which he realizes he's been taken advantage of, and no matter how much he begs her not to leave him, everything begins to catch fire. How many men did the female lead use to get revenge? Crazy! Rionel wakes up panting, feeling puzzled by the warmth of the place. As he sits up, he hears Penelope, who's busy with her paperwork, suggesting that he should rest a bit more since he caught the flu. She then shares that his own knight brought him and moved him here to her office since the guest room he was using doesn't have a heating system yet. She chooses to let him and his knights remain in her office for the time being before stepping out of the room, while Rionel is still confused and starts to think there might be a heating device making Penelope's office floor warm. Rionel wakes up feeling much better that afternoon, but he still doesn't know what's keeping the floor warm, so he suspects it's the mage's work. He is surprised to find Alwyn sitting on the bench inside the room, which leads him to call him by his real name, Ariel. Alwyn immediately glares evilly at Rionel, warning him to be careful with his words before calling him as Prince Rionel, Duke of the North. This leads to an argument between the two, with Rionel asking how heartbroken Alwyn really is to be chilling in some rundown castle, while Alwyn just laughs and calls the prince a monster hunter who went into the woods just to freeze to death. Yup, these two are in the same situation as each other, because they both tried to win the heart of the female lead but got totally shut down. Rionel brings up Penelope, prompting Alwyn to shoot him his death glare and suggest he leave quickly if he still wants to stay alive. However, the Duke isn't even sweating it and just straight up questions why the Baroness is running things instead of the Baron. Then he smiles and figures that Baron Halo must have died. Are they going to compete again to win a lady? Rian, you better back off or you're better off with me. Choose! Awen casts a sharp gaze at Rionel, cautioning him against speaking thoughtlessly to Penelope if he wants to keep his real identity a secret. This causes Rion to pause for a sec before pointing out that the Tower Master is also concealing his identity. And he even comments on how startled he is that the Tower Master suddenly cares so much about others when he thought he only has eyes for Betty. Just as they're about to spark things up, the door swings open and there stands our pretty Baroness, Penelope, with the maids beside her. She then informs Rion that dinner is ready and suggests that he wash his face before the meal with the help of the servants, which he gladly accepts. Rion then watches the two chatting like an old couple, with Penelope crossing her arms, curious if Awen has gotten into trouble again, while Awen shyly asks if it's just the two of them for dinner. This leads her to wonder if he intends to invite someone else, and she gets a loud and clear no from him, so they head off. No sweet talking, just them being comfortable with each other. Love it! A few days later, the construction for the palace's underfloor heating is moving along well, and Rionel's condition has rapidly improved. He sent out some letters to check the area for any problems, and once he confirmed everything was clear, he filed a report and spent some time there. However, the problem is Penelope feels uncomfortable every time Rion visits her in her office. Despite her desire to make him leave, she is unable to tell him the truth. She pauses while holding her cup and tells Giselle that she prefers to drink coffee, but Giselle firmly reminds her that she already had some earlier, so she really shouldn't have any more in the afternoon, which leaves her with no choice. Knowing that Penelope enjoys coffee, Rion smiles and expresses his desire to join her for her morning tea, as it's been some time since he last had it. Although she silently screams, "No!" she just tells him that she'll have a servant bring his coffee instead, which surprises Rion but finds it interesting. She thinks that this will make Rionel stop approaching her, but when she looks at him, he simply smiles innocently like a pure angel. Looking at him, Penelope can't help but blush a little since he appears just like the way the story portrays his beauty. But she shakes off that thought fast and tells herself not to get caught up in his charms. Rionel apologizes for wanting to have coffee with her, but because she can't turn him down, she decides to make the most of it and playfully mentions that her time isn't free, so he must return the favor. This surprises him, but he promises her that he will certainly repay her for her kindness, and she happily agrees. Her honesty makes him laugh, which surprises him, and he quickly covers his mouth as he explains that he isn't someone who laughs or talks much either. My guy Awen then appears and sits next to Penelope, who appears to have gotten used to his presence, so she simply asks if he wants tea. However, no one can make tea right now because all of the maids are warming up like chicks in the conference room, so she decides to make it herself. Awen asks if she can even make tea, sparking a fight between the two before Penelope chooses to simply walk away and make it. Rion then gets surprised when he catches sight of Awen, whose gaze was locked on Penelope, busy making tea. As the three of them drink their tea, Rion mentions that he has noticed a lot of construction going on at Halo Castle, and assumes they are constructing this new heating system. This gets Awen excited as he proudly claims that this is the heating system he built with Penelope, while our girl is upset that he keeps taking credit when she was the one who came up with the idea. Rionel observes the two arguing and notices that they're actually rather close, which strikes a chord with him because he believes Awen has moved on while he remains in the same dark place. That evening, Awen goes to see Penelope, and he tells her like a little kid that the maids are saying strange things about her. Curious, she asks what they're saying, but her attention is divided since she is busy organizing some boxes. One crate nearly hits her head, but Awen quickly catches it before telling her that the maids are debating over whether she'll end up with him or Rionel. The maids are having a great time, but don't worry, we totally ship you and our lovely girl here. As Awen puts the crate back on the shelf, he points out that he'll give the maids a warning for saying such things, as he believes Penelope might still be mourning her husband's death, which leads her to make a sour face. She then tells him not to worry about the maids, but he sounds really serious when he states that rumors like this could harm her reputation and honor. She actually thinks there's nothing wrong with it, as being in a relationship isn't so bad. Our guy is quite surprised to find out she has plans to meet another man. Absolutely she is! In this world, relationships are quite flexible. Widows can remarry, and nobles are free to have lovers. She's determined to make up for the fact that her previous life's work prevented her from really experiencing love, and she sees this second life as her opportunity to do it right. And you have our full support here! Honey, you deserve to love and be loved! Meanwhile, Awen's mind is racing, and imagining Penelope with another guy makes him uncomfortable. Someone is falling. Awen and Rionel have recently been coming together at her tea time, so she is doing her best to ignore them. She then receives word that Pablo has arrived for a visit and is already waiting in the hallway, prompting Rionel to ask whether he can also greet Pablo because he knows him. Before she can respond, they hear a loud sneeze outside, so she rushes and discovers poor Pablo freezing, who explains that the carriage broke down on the snowy road, forcing him to walk the rest of the way to the castle. Penelope instantly asks Giselle to accompany Pablo to warm himself in hot water. After Pablo has freshened up, Penelope meets with him for a business discussion, and it appears that he has brought the most expert dwarfs to learn about the heating system. He has also sent green herb soap to noble families, including Countess Hans, the queen of high society. Penelope is overjoyed to hear such good news, so she invites Pablo to spend the night and dine with him. As someone he knows, Rionel is also at the castle, which surprises him. So guys, what do you think of this story so far? Please subscribe and turn on notifications for updates on this and all our other stories, so you can be the first to find out when they're out. Thank you so much for your support. See you in the next one!